Hi, welcome to this mini lab. In this mini lab, we were going to learn something called the method overloading. We just talked about it in last week's lecture. So we say that methods of the same name can be declared in the same class as long as they have different sets of parameters determined by the numbers, types, and the order of the parameters. This is what we call that is the method overloading. When an overloaded method is called, the compiler selects the appropriate method by examining the numbers, types, and the order of the arguments in the call. And the method overloading is commonly used to create several methods within the same name and perform the same or similar tasks, but on different types of different numbers of arguments. For example, we say if we can use the math method like abs, which referring to the absolute value, min and max. We say that is to find the minimum or max of two numbers, and they are overloaded with they can overload with different versions, like one with two double parameters, or with two float parameters, or with like two int parameters, etc. So in this mini lab, we were going to declaring the over methods to calculate the square of a specific number. So let's begin to create our Java class. So let's give it a name, method overload. And within the class, let's create our main method first. And let's leave it empty here. And let's create our square method. Public static. The first is an integer type, square. Right. And to overload it, we can change the int into like double. So this is what we call method overloading. And this is the structure for the square method with different types of the parameters, but they conduct the similar tasks, which is to square the specific number. For the integer type here, it can only process the integer value, so that means it can only conduct operations on the whole numbers. However, for the double type, it can process on the floating point numbers there. But both of these methods convey the same meaning, that it will square the input number and return the value to the call E. So let's implement our main method first. Let's like soak. We can directly call the method printf the square of the value. Let's say 7. We call the int square first. Okay, is something. Here is the call E square. Okay, it will indicate that we are going to pass something integer value, right? So if we put 7 here, it will automatically detect it that okay, it is an integer value. But what if I want to calculate another one like 7.5? So here it is no longer an integer value, If I change it to 7.5, okay, the hints will also change to double value. And after that, we will implement the square concretely. So let's first prompt something. F. Let's say cos square. Let's first print out the integer itself and then calculate the square, and then we return the result. Okay, so that is called the square with int argument. Here is the int value passed from the method signature. And let's do something. The result is supposed to be, we have to declare it. It is supposed to be int value multiplied by int value, right? And let's output the no, we don't need to output, we just need to return the result. So once we return the result to its core E here, it will output the square of the integer 7. And same thing supposed to be here, right? But it is no longer an int value, it's a double value. As we mentioned that as we mentioned in our scope lab, which is the prior one, right? And each method has its own copy for the instance variables. So the result here and the result here are different, but they are binding to the according method, which is the double square. This is the double result, right? Because its return type supposed to be consistent. So let's run this program. Okay, we have some problems. Let's see. Okay, call the square with int argument. So this has successfully implemented. That means there's supposed to be something wrong with this method. So what is the problem? Okay, I see. The percentage D is for the integer, and we have to make it F to receive the double type. So I think this is the only problem we have. So let's run it again. Okay, here it's the same thing. We should change it to F. Alright, as you can see, we have successfully output the square of 7 and 7.5 using the method overloading. These two square methods perform the same task while receive different types of the arguments, right? And accordingly, the outputs for them is a little bit different. One is 49, which is a whole number. However, for the square of 7.5, it will output the double type result, which is 52.25 with extra 4 digits, since we don't format the output of the floating point numbers, right? So this is the method overloading, and I hope you can implement this mini lab successfully without bugs. So if you have any questions, you can post your problem in the discussion board, and I will reply to you as early as possible.